Hi, I'm Chase, and if you've been paying attention to the internet at all this week, then you've probably seen people talking about President Trump's State of the Union address. Now, as expected, there were lots of arguments about how great or how terrible the speech was, but the most popular talking point was the amount of applause going on during the speech. Because there was a lot. Like a lot. There was a lot of clapping. As I watched it, I remember sitting there thinking, this is ridiculous, and even saying things like, there wasn't this much clapping for Obama's speech. But I quickly realized that it had been 9 years since I had seen President Obama's first State of the Union address, and there was no way I remembered it well enough to even make that claim. Still, I kept being bothered by this annoying, constant applause. I repeatedly asked myself, is this normal? Does this always happen? And by the end of the night, after seeing plenty of other people ask similar questions, I decided to find out. So, here's what I plan to do. Step 1. I needed to find videos of both Trump's and Obama's State of the Union addresses. Fortunately, this is 2018 and I have access to the internet, so this took about 1 minute. Thanks, Google. Step 2. I needed to find a stopwatch. Again, modern technology saved the day because my iPhone has a stopwatch built into it. Step 3. I would sit through both State of the Union speeches and keep track of every instance of applause for both presidents, and I would time the applause with my stopwatch. At the end, I would record my result in a spreadsheet and finally have an answer about whether or not the annoying applause was a normal occurrence. So, I had a goal, I had a plan, next it was just time to execute. I knew I was in for a long ride, so I made myself a cup of coffee, settled in, and started on my quest to answer this burning question.
401k.
And it was awful. Combined, the speeches are about 2 hours and 15 minutes long, add in the time it took to track and record the times, and we're talking nearly 3 hours of listening to presidential speeches. But I persevered. As Trump signaled the end of my viewing experience with an iconic "God Bless America," a sense of relief passed over me. Still, my work wasn't done. I had collected my data, but now it was time to analyze. I wanted to know exactly how much of each president's speech was taken up by nothing but applause. In order to do this, I also kept track of how long into the applause each president kept speaking. I called this the overlap time. I subtracted the overlap time from the total applause time in order to find the pure applause time for each speech, and the results were pretty interesting. Obama's 2010 speech was 55 minutes long, and I counted 107 instances of applause during the speech, with a total applause time of 1,190 seconds, or 19.8 minutes. And President Obama spoke over applause 52 times, for a total of 3 minutes of overlap time. This means that Obama's speech clocks in at 16.8 minutes of pure applause time. So, out of his 55-minute speech, President Obama spent 41.2 minutes actually speaking. Treating President Trump's speech the same way, these are the numbers we get. So, now let's compare the two. But first, what's up with Trump's total applause time? 1776 seconds? Great, I can already hear his base calling it symbolism. Anyway, over the course of Trump's speech, 36% of the time was taken by nothing but applause. That's a 20% increase from Obama's figure. And so I had my answer. Is a lot of applause normal for a State of the Union address? Well, it seems that way, and Trump's did have more than Obama's, so good for me. My premature claims and annoyance were totally justified. Now, I could have ended my analysis here, but then I realized we can actually take this data and get a lot more insight into how these presidents are different speech givers. So, that's what I did. As I said before, Obama's speech was 55 minutes long, and he spent 41 of those minutes actually speaking. Trump's speech was 80.5 minutes long, and he spent 51.5 of those minutes actually speaking. So, with this 30 minutes of extra speech time, Trump only spent 10 of those minutes actually talking. Still, with this increase in time, you might think that Trump did say more in the long run, right? Nope. I found transcripts for both speeches and was able to get a word count for each. Obama's speech contained 7,222 words, and Trump's 5,159. Now, you might be wondering the same thing I was. How was his speech so much longer if he actually said so much less? The answer? Trump speaks very slowly. If we divide the word count of each speech by the time the president spent actually speaking, we can estimate how many words they spoke per minute. For Obama, that figure is 175 words per minute. For Donald Trump, it's about 100. This can be kind of difficult to imagine, so I've used a metronome to help show us what this sounds like. Here's what Obama's average words per minute sounds like at 175 words per minute. And here's what Trump sounds like at about 100 words per minute. Another thing I noticed is that the two presidents are very different in the way that they handle applause. Obama has a tendency to speak over the applause more often. This contributes to the dramatic effect his speeches tend to have.
We cut taxes for 95% of working families. We cut taxes for small businesses. We cut taxes for first-time home buyers. We cut taxes for parents trying to care for their children. We cut taxes for 8 million Americans paying for college.
On the other hand, Trump is known for his one-liners. He'll say his piece and then sit back and wait for the applause.
We can lift our citizens from welfare to work, from dependence to independence, and from poverty to prosperity. And let's support working families by supporting paid family leave.
Now, these one-liners tend to not have much depth to them, but that doesn't mean that they're not carefully calculated. For example, Trump made it a point to call the American flag great and to talk about standing for the national anthem. Ultimately, these things don't have much to do with the State of the Union, but they do connect with his base. The speeches were also very differently structured. Not only did Trump literally say fewer words, but the words that he did speak were often spoken in order to give the story of someone in the audience or to brag about what he's done so far. It took 34 minutes for President Trump to actually talk about specific policy changes he'd like to make moving forward. And in total, there were 16 moments of applause for someone in the audience whom he had identified and spoken about. This added up to about 6 minutes of pure applause time for these individuals. On the other hand, Obama introduced specific policy ideas at just 8 minutes and 16 seconds into his speech. And throughout his speech, he only diverted to one other individual, Michelle Obama, and he did so to speak about her mission to combat childhood obesity. Now, there are a lot of details we could go into, and there are a lot more speeches that we could look at for both presidents, but I think I want to end this here. So, there you have it. My basic analysis and comparison of the first State of the Union addresses given by two very different presidents. And now I want to know your thoughts. What did you think of Trump's speech? Do you think I made a mistake? Or do you have something that you want me to research and talk about in another video? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked the video or you hated the video, either way, consider liking, subscribing, and sharing with your friends. I want to hear what all of you guys have to say. Anyway, until the next time, thank you for watching. I don't really have an outro yet, so this is just gonna be, I'm just gonna do the YouTube thing. I'm just gonna